The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, everybody. Just a quick introduction. So today's episode 157, marks the first guest interview. And I did an amazing interview with Wendy Cole under the banner, or the pillar, I should say, of authenticity. And so I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoy the conversation. And Wendy is somebody that is living her life, and she's living her truth. And by transitioning at the age of 67, it's pretty incredible. And I think you'll agree she's a testament to not only, just living your life on your terms, but also that you're just never too old to do anything. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the episode. Meet Wendy Cole. Oh my God, yeah. So you'll definitely have to check out this baby reindeer on Netflix. It's interesting. It's very interesting, and it's incredibly well done. So
I can't wait to.
I just wanted to welcome everybody to really what is going to be my first guest interview. And Wendy Cole is hopefully the lucky recipient of that. But anyway, I am incredibly excited today, honestly, Wendy, to really get a chance to talk to you. We got connected through a mutual friend. And, one of the things, as I've shared with you, that, I got to a point with this podcast where I really felt like I needed to kind of, bring other people on to almost provide some real life and additional perspective to a lot of different topics that I've covered. And then when I went through the process of, writing this book, as you and I have talked a few times, these pillars of self-awareness, resilience, authenticity, and then empathy, they're really like front and center for me these days in everything I do. And so when I started thinking about guests, I was like, okay, they really need to fit in one of those pillars. I think that's where I'd like to kind of, separate myself from everybody else. And the crazy thing about you is the authenticity thing. I mean, it's just insane to me. So for everybody, as a quick intro, Wendy is a transgender. And by the way, I'm probably going to say stuff wrong and call things the wrong thing, but that's the beauty of this because, I'm here to learn. And my audience is here to learn, and we're all here to learn from you. And to me, obviously, the transgender process is something I don't really know much about. But what makes you even more authentic than you already are is you transition at the age of 67, which to me is, I don't even know if people would get like a nose job at 67. You literally went all in, and you're living your truth. You're living your life. You're living your truth. So I'm really excited to just jump into all that. And I guess with that intro, I'll let you kind of set the stage a little bit.
Thank you for that, Ray. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I was born transgender. That's how this happens. We're born this way.
And so, what age did you start to, I guess, even feel that? And what did you feel? Were you like, wow, I don't really feel like a man or a boy at that age? What was it?
Well, my earliest recollections are my first argument with my father over gender, or confrontation over that, was at around age 3. My favorite toy, I don't know where it came from, was a doll. And he came home one night and took it away and substituted a teddy bear, saying, "No son of mine is going to play with a doll." And I got spanked for crying and the whole 9 yards.
And you remember this far back? You really remember that, for example, that evening?
Yes, and it just continued on from there. I didn't have words to put around this at all. I couldn't describe it. I just knew what felt right and what felt good.
I mean, what are we talking about? I know women don't like to reveal their age, but I think I've already let the cat out of the bag on that. So this is like 19, are we talking like in the 60s?
No, this is in the early 1950s.
Early 1950s. Okay, so like at this point, there's not even labels on any of this stuff. There's not even, I mean, did the word transgender even exist in the
It
1950s?
did not exist. The only words were transvestism or transvestite
Okay, transvestite. Okay.
and transsexual.
Okay. And by the way, a transvestite, define that for me. Like, I want to make
Sure.
sure we're being clear on all
That
this.
is someone that enjoys and gets excited and really feels good for a period of time wearing the clothes of the opposite gender, the opposite sex.
Okay, got it.
And
Okay, yeah. Okay, and I mean, this is totally crude, but I mean, I think that's what tranny, like a tranny or like something like that. Okay, so that's really dressing up as the opposite sex. You're not doing any type of surgery or anything like that. It's almost like, again, I'm going to say a ton of stupid shit, but like it's almost like a costume that you're wearing for the day because you want to play dress up.
well, and in today's world, there's a large portion of the transgender community that is considered cross-dressers.
Okay.
Today, that's what they are. And these are men who otherwise, for the most part, would never want to give up their male privilege.
Okay.
Would never want to live full-time as female, but they enjoy occasionally meeting up with other like-minded people at different events and different venues, being together, spending 3, 4, 5 days as female.
Okay.
And then they fold up their suitcases and go back home to their wives, kids, and their jobs and their guys.
Wow. And I have to imagine this is like there are that community and probably those events and all of that stuff, I'm sure exists in a big time way. I guess under the radar, if you want it to be under the radar, right?
A lot of times, yes. Where I lived in Pennsylvania, the town that I was in had a large gay community, and there was pretty large gay bar. So there would be a group of people that would come in once every 3 months, and they'd spend Friday, Saturday, Sunday having a blast there, and then they'd go home. That's the cross-dressing part of the community, which is basically the largest part. Okay. Some of those people will eventually come to a realization of what they really need to do, and they'll migrate over into what we call the transsexual part of the community.
Okay.
These are people that live full-time as women, change their legal identity and everything.
Okay.
And that's got two major components to it. There's the people who opt not to have surgery.
Okay.
And there are various reasons. They're all personal reasons. There's no rules around how to do this. I, for one, opted to have the surgery and go all the way with it.
Yeah.
That's what I dreamed of from my childhood.
Well, let me ask you, why did you wait to 67 to do that?
Well, at age 10, which was my first major pivotal point of my life, I couldn't hold it back anymore.
Wow.
I was absolutely knew I was a girl.
Were you into sports at all? Did you like, stick and ball sports, football, G.I. Joe, or none of that stuff? Like none of that stuff was appealing.
I didn't have any interest whatsoever. Father wanted me to play Little League.
Okay.
I fought it. I hated it. The uniforms were scratchy and itchy. The field was basically a lot of dirt, and I was terrified of getting hit by the ball.
Yeah. What was your mom like? What was your mom like? Like, where was she in the mix?
That was one of my major disappointments. Was at age 10 when I told her that I was a girl, I expected her to help me.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize, she was a typical 1950s housewife. No bank account, no credit card, no checking account, no nothing, and no job. It was the Ozzie and Harriet, Father Knows Best time of our society. But, it's...
Well, I mean, here's the thing. You can't blame her either. You know what I mean? Like I look back at, just the way, I mean, my parents had very traditional roles as well growing up in terms of the mother and the father and all of that stuff. And, again, I was blessed with a wonderful childhood. But, when you think back and you think back to our parents, and, I've talked about this a lot, before they were our parents, they were just some guy and some girl, and so like, I think that they, obviously all parents ideally try as hard as they could, but did it cause conflict between your parents? Like, did your situation, which really seems like at the age of 10 was like a real pivotal point, 3 to 10, maybe it was, more inside you, but are you saying that like from 10 on, you really started to express yourself more, and as a family unit, this definitely became on the table for everybody? And by the way, do you have siblings?
No, I don't. That's another story. No, at that time, I had no siblings that I was aware of. No, my mother was totally subservient to my father.
Yeah. Okay.
He was totally in charge. This was 1958. They took me to a psychiatric center, to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist said, once he has a career, a wife, a house and family, he'll forget all about being a girl. And I said, no, I won't. I am a girl. And I was taken from the room. The next few sessions that we had, I was only participating occasionally. Otherwise, I sat in the waiting room. And on the way home, after what turned out to be the last visit, my mother turned to me and said, forget about being a girl. Stop insisting that's who you are and what you are. Otherwise, you're going to be committed and fixed.
Holy mackerel.
That terrified the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. How could it not? Oh my God. Because at this point, you're still 10, 11. We're still in that age range?
Yep.
Okay.
So that began my life of repression, anxiety, fear, shame, guilt, all of those negative emotions.
Yeah. Was your dad like, have your parents passed, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. Was he violent? Like, was it like when you would maybe, I don't know, express a girl quality? Was he like, I mean, did he hit you? Like, what happened?
From that point on, I hid all my feelings.
Okay.
I did not express at all. Otherwise, I would be committed and fixed, whatever that meant, which in those days probably meant electroshock therapy and drugs and all kinds of fun stuff.
For your, let's say, generation of trans anything, it was probably just suppressing it, because again, at that point, there's not even, let alone the awareness we have now, but there's not even really anything. At that point, it's really probably just, like you said, transvestite and then gay, right? Like those were the non-straight sort of terminology and things going on, right?
Yeah. Over the last 9 years, because I've been living as myself authentically for 9 years now, I was actually gaslighted by my parents and the medical profession into thinking I was one of the few who ever felt like this.
Oh, I'm sure there were so many. But, one of the benefits of social media, even though there's a lot of negatives to social media, but one of the benefits is, the ability to build community in your community. People talk about like finding your tribe and finding your people and all that. So I do think that's amazing that social media has empowered it. Let me get back to, let's actually, I mean, I took a bunch of notes, but so let's do, like, what was high school like? Like, what was high school like? What were you like in high school?
I was busy repressing. See, this never goes away. Was with me day in and day out. From the time I woke up to the time I went to bed at night, I knew I was not right. So I didn't really date. I was afraid girls might figure me out. I wasn't into sports or anything with the guys.
Okay.
I focused totally on my schoolwork, which at this point in my life, parents basically had me under their thumb and were monitoring everything I was doing just in case. So, I got great grades. I graduated from high school. I went on to college.
Okay.
I even forced myself to try and fit in to a heteronormative society by going to an all-men's college. Union College in Schenectady, New York.
Okay, that's interesting. Let me ask you this. So, like, in high school, like, did you have guy friends? Who was your friend group?
I had maybe 3 or 4 guys that I was friends with. They were all into cars, so cars I could understand, and I enjoyed it, and I was good at it.
Okay.
Driving and also other mechanical work.
Okay, that's interesting. What about girls? Like, because again, I think one of the things that I really want to talk about, because I find it interesting, is, and you told me this when we talked, you never felt gay. Like you've never felt gay. So like at that point in high school, I mean, that's where the hormones start raging, right? Like,
right.
Never felt attracted to other guys in the high school, right?
No.
Okay, that's interesting.
That was, it's basically how we are in the second trimester of birth is when all the sexual differentiation begins. And that's also affects the brain and how it gets wired up. Okay. I'm convinced that my brain got wired up as female and my body got the opposite instructions and went male. And this is the thing that kind of freaked my parents in the 50s was the big story was Christine Jorgensen, who came back from World War II as a woman.
Okay, yeah, I don't even know who that is.
She had surgery in Denmark, and when I heard that, I'm going, wow, how am I going to get to Denmark? As far as dating, no, I think I may have had 2 dates. I don't really remember.
Did you go to prom? Did you go to homecoming? Did you go to like the high school stuff? None of that, huh? Wow.
None of that.
And then you had a few guy friends. Any close like girls that you were friends with or not really?
No. Okay. See, I was also afraid of girls because I figured, I might do something that would give myself away and my secret would be revealed.
Yeah. Totally get that. Okay, here's a you know me, I told you I'm going to keep it real. When did you lose your virginity? What was that process?
That wasn't until sometime in college.
Okay.
I did try dating in college. I dated for a while, a really nice girl.
Yeah.
And we ended up breaking up after a while, I think after 2 years or so, because I told her.
Wow, okay. So that's who you lost your virginity to?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you were intimate with that person during that time. Like, what did that feel like? Like, did you enjoy it? Did it feel weird? Like,
no, I really didn't really enjoy it. I was in the wrong body.
No, I totally get that. It's just, obviously at that point, that was the body you were into. It's just fascinating to me to try and understand. Like, were you faking it? Like were you, did she ever say like, what's wrong? You don't seem it.
No. None of that. I was very, very good at hiding this.
Okay.
And therein lies a lot of my guilt too that I had because I was lying to people by omission and I wasn't being real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, obviously, like, that's a tough one, though. That's definitely not again, and we're talking, now I'm assuming we're in the 60s now. Now, granted, from what I've heard and read about the 60s, obviously it was a little more free-flowing of a time, peace, love, all that stuff. Did the country start to change a little? Did you start to, did the trans movement start then? I don't even really know when the trans...
No, it really didn't. It was still very closeted. 1970 is one of my big pivotal years.
Okay.
I was getting ready to graduate.
Okay.
Graduation for anyone is a major life change. You're going into the world. You're leaving what you've known.
We're talking college, right? We're in college.
College.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So I decided I was going to find a psychiatrist to try and help me with this.
Mm.
I actually started to transition. I started coming out to my neighbors in the apartment building that I was living in at the time. I came out to a few local friends that I had.
This is after graduating college. So like you're
No,
how
this
old?
is
20?
during my senior year. I was 22 years old.
Okay, you're 22. Okay, got it. Okay, so you're
And
like, I'm gonna start to like dip my toe into the realm of authenticity at that point.
absolutely.
Okay. All right, how'd that go?
And it was going along quite well, but then my psychiatrist took me to a quarterly meeting of area-wide psychiatrists
Mm.
that was held in a hospital conference room. And I was a case study patient. So I'm there sitting there talking to all these doctors. Now, these are all MD psychiatrists. I was talking for no more than about 5 minutes. One of them stands up and says, well, I'll see you all next quarter. He turns and looks at me and he says, you're a freak. You should move to New York City and turn tricks like the rest of them. Well, I found out at my next psychiatric session that this was considered by therapists, doctors, psychiatrists as a psychological condition that I was born with no treatment and no cure. That was the official diagnosis in the DSM and all of that.
Okay.
So I came to the realization that he was probably right. That if I continued on this path and transition, I would never be part of society again.
Oh.
I would have to live underground in Manhattan or move to San Francisco. Those were my two options in those days.
Yeah.
So I made a huge pivot and started off an effort to check off all the boxes that said I'm a heteronormative person.
Okay. So like it's almost like you were like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna try and like remove this from myself.
I knew I couldn't do that because it does not go away. It never goes away.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to understand. This is how we're born. This is how our brains are wired. It doesn't go away. Everyone deals with it differently because they have, their own feelings of how they want to present to the world, who they are, what they are. My goal had always been to just blend into society as any other woman.
Okay.
That's what I wanted. I got to, I got married.
How old were you when you got married?
Let's see, somewhere around 26, 27.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit younger. But
okay. And were you just miserable at this point? Like, were you internally miserable? I mean, did you ever think about committing suicide?
Oh, that was a constant.
Seriously? Wow.
Seriously. And as far as being miserable, yeah. There were times where, I thought, okay, everybody told me, my parents, the doctors, once you're married, once you have a family, blah, 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 and a career, you'll forget all about this. Well, I've tried everything else, so let me try that.
You kind of were like, okay, you know what? Let me try to do all the things I'm supposed to do, and let's see if that makes me feel different. But it didn't. Like, did she have oh, by the way, let me ask one question. So your friends from high school, I mean, you keep in touch with those people? Like, do they know?
My very closest friend in high school, he dropped out of college at the end of his sophomore year after seeing John Wayne in the Green Berets. He joined the Army. He was a psych major. He joined the Army, went airborne, became a Green Beret, and shipped off to Vietnam. The neighborhood used to freak out when he came home on leave in his military uniform. Yeah. And here I was, the hippie freak from the 60s.
Oh my God.
And we were still friends.
Oh, that's funny. That's like a Forrest Gump vibe along with Tom Cruise and Born on the 4th of July. You know what? I haven't even asked you, which, God, I've been dying to ask you this. A, how did you pick the name Wendy? And then what was your name before?
My name, Wendy, came up. I picked it in grammar school. She was the prettiest girl in my grammar school class. She was the most popular. She wore the prettiest clothes, and everybody loved her. And I decided that if I'm ever going to ever really be a girl, I'm going to be Wendy.
My gosh, that's funny. So there's an actual Wendy that you kind of, I guess,
I
patterned.
actually tried to find her, but that's too long ago. There's no way.
Oh, that's funny.
I actually, in June of last year, visited my old hometown. It was really fun to walk through the streets and neighborhoods as me.
Yeah.
It was like I closed that door.
That's amazing. All right, who were you before Wendy? What was your name?
My male representative or male facsimile's name.
That's hilarious. Was what?
Larry.
No, you definitely look like a Wendy, and you are a Wendy. Okay, that's funny. All right, so Larry, hell, that's an upgrade to Wendy right there. Larry's kind of a, although Larry Bird, I do like Larry Bird, but okay,
You and me both.
That's interesting. All right, so now actually, that's super cool. You went back to your hometown closure, because I have to imagine part of this entire journey for you, and really part of the authenticity and the resilience for sure, is trying to get closure on various parts.
Out of your pillars. The only thing that I had all through those earlier stages of my life was self-awareness and resilience.
Yeah.
That's what got me through. It was in just before 2015 was when I was in a very black period. I had everything set up to kill myself.
Oh, wow.
I decided for the first time, my whole life was intact, but I never looked up to see if my diagnosis had changed. So before taking that final step to kill myself, I looked. And in 2012, the diagnostic changed from a psychological condition with no treatment and no cure to a condition that you're born with. And it's treatable now by hormone therapy, ecological therapy, and any necessary surgeries.
You're talking about the diagnosis in general, about the concept of
Transgender was now a word that was out, and that was the diagnosis for it.
Okay, got it. Interesting. You're talking about like you're just looking online at some, I don't know, the evaluation.
I Googled it and pulled up everything I could find.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was that day that I went upstairs from my office and I told my wife, because we had been married for 4 years.
Okay.
We had already had 2 kids.
Wait, this is what year? What year is this?
1970.
Okay, 78. Okay, so you had 2 kids.
Yep.
Wow. Boy, girl, what'd you guys have?
Boy, girl.
Okay.
And in 1978, we'd been married for 4 years.
Okay.
And I was under so much stress, so much anxiety. I hated my whole life.
Yeah.
And I was talking in my sleep about being a woman. My wife woke me up and asked me for an explanation, and I decided, to hell with it, I'm just going to tell her.
Wow.
Figuring that I'd be divorced by morning.
Yeah.
For her own reasons, which I didn't ask about or even think about until 2015. She told me the following day, we're going to stay together as long as you don't do anything about this.
30, 31? You're in your early 30s? Because you said you got married at 27. This was like 4 years later. So this is married for four or 5 years, 2 kids. You guys had the kids like close together like that?
Right.
God, you're a hell of an actor. Like, were you just like faking it that whole time? Or I mean, do you remember times of happiness during that time? Or was it just just a total, I guess, I don't want to say.
There were times where I think I might have been happy, but in all honesty, I didn't know what happiness was at that time. I was too busy with all of this. The internal turmoil from all of this was just overwhelming at times.
That's actually an excellent point. That's a good way to think about it. The internal turmoil. Yeah, you probably didn't even realize what happiness was. Like when your kids were born. I mean, obviously that must have felt kind of happy, right?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
And all of that, also too, I wasn't social. I was never a social person. Okay. If my wife threw a party, like holidays or anything like that, relatives, she was the one that had all the relatives, and they would come in and all of that. I'd do like a 20-minute visit with people, and then I would vanish.
Okay.
I just didn't feel comfortable. I had my secret to hide, and it just was overwhelming.
And at that point, your parents, what's the relationship like there with your parents?
Ray, my parents were thrilled. He got married. He had a family. He has a career. And I was miserable.
Yeah. But you weren't really showing them you were miserable. So in their eyes, maybe they probably thought it kind of went away, right?
I don't really think so, because what had happened is over those first 20 some odd years, the whole relationship between me and my parents was very strained, especially with my father. My father was very conservative. During World War II, he had been a lieutenant commander in the Navy. He was a research chemical engineer for Texaco Research Labs. He had 100 patents plus to his name. And he expected me to be just as conservative and just like him. Me going into computer technology and working for a major computer company, second largest to IBM at the time, and living in Massachusetts, working for Digital Equipment Corporation, they were basically thrilled that I did manage to make something out of my life.
Yeah. That makes sense. But again, that's what I'm saying. They probably were like, okay, cool. She grew out of it. Like it was a phase in their mind. And again, with their basis of experience, which, part of the whole empathy concept to me these days is trying to put myself in other people's shoes. And I mean, that even goes back to your parents. So like, I try to put myself in your parents' shoes with the limited knowledge. Like they probably didn't even know how to deal with it. So once you got married, they've got grandkids. I mean, I have to imagine in their mind, they're like, oh, she grew out of that phase. It was like a phase. How did when they passed, each of them, well, especially your dad, like, did he know the real? Well, you hadn't transitioned yet, right?
No, and basically from about the early 1980s on, I never saw my father. I never had anything to do with him.
Really? Oh.
Right. And the relationship with my mother was very, very strained. My wife at the time told me that from her conversations with my mother, she believed that my mother would have been thrilled if I became a girl.
Really?
But I know my father would not have been.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So parents, so once you got married and had the kids, you're saying you guys it didn't make the relationship better? Like they didn't really get to spend time with their grandkids?
My mother did.
Okay.
There was a lot of problems between my mother and father. They wound up getting divorced. My father had a major stroke. There was a lot of stuff going on with him.
Yes. When did your dad pass away?
2001.
2001. Okay.
And in 2001, we had the funeral service in Poughkeepsie, New York. And then we got in the cars and followed the hearse to Saratoga, New York, where he had been born and raised. Mm-hmm. and he was buried in the family plot in Saratoga. And that's where I met a half-sister that I had never known.
Holy
There's a
mackerel.
lot behind my father.
Man. So did he have like a whole different family?
Yes, he had 2 daughters with his first wife.
That your mom never even knew about?
Well, she knew about his first wife and his first daughter, Earl,
Okay.
but she didn't know about Kathy. Kathy was 1 year older than me. It was my father's attempt to have a son. That's how desperate he was to have a son to carry on the family name. Long story short, my parents were technically not married for the first 8 years of my life, at least. They didn't get married legally until 1956.
Okay. So you met your stepsisters at the funeral.
Right. I had met Carol once when I was in grammar school. She came to the house, stayed for 2 months, and was working at Texaco Research Labs to make money to go to Colby College in Maine. And she was there, and then she vanished. And I never received an explanation, even if I asked.
Mm.
So meeting my half-sister, Kathy, was kind of mind-blowing. At that point in my life, I actually wanted nothing to do with either parent.
Mm.
When that changed was in 2015 when I transitioned.
Okay.
I started to reflect back on my life. That's when I started to find the authenticity pillar and empathy. First, empathy for myself.
Yeah. Totally.
And then empathy for everything else and everyone else that I dealt with in my life. And I actually began to have forgiveness for the doctors who basically abused me, and forgiveness for my parents.
Yeah.
And anybody else that I had lied to by omission. Empathy for them as well, because I had a negative impact on a lot of people's lives.
Had your mom passed away? When did your mom pass away?
She passed in 2005. 2005.
Okay, all right. Before we get to 2015, let me make sure. Okay, childhood. We talked about when do you know you feel different? Really, it kind of felt like it started at 3, and then at 10 was when it really started. I guess
manifested.
Okay, cool. And then yes, you never felt gay, huh? You never really felt any gay vibe.
I am convinced that it's part of our second trimester development.
Okay.
That your brain gets wired in certain ways.
Okay.
And being gay, whether you're male or female, it's who you're attracted to and who you love.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Okay. And that's a different, even that, let's go with your theory, but that gay wire is different than a trans wire, because I think people like me, and again, everyone that just doesn't really understand it, we group everybody together. Like when we hear, and part of that is the way it's positioned to us. It's positioned to us as LGBTQ plus, and so you think, okay, this is a cohesive unit, this is a cohesive community, and most people don't even really know what the letters of that acronym stand for, but we think that this is one cohesive, organized, and all on the same page group. But like we talked in our phone call getting ready for this, that's another thing that's interesting to me is there's factions. There's total factions within that world, right? Like it's not like everybody gets along and everybody is the same, because everybody's not the same. Everybody is very different in I guess what they are and who they want to be, right? Am I
right.
thinking the right way? Okay.
And I wouldn't use the word factions, because to my way of thinking that implies conflict. There really isn't a conflict. It's a spectrum of, within the transgender community, it's definitely a spectrum of gender identity, presentation, how you present yourself to society. And it's also a spectrum of how you feel about yourself and what you want out of it. There's non-binary, gender fluid, the cross-dressing.
Non-binary, let's talk about that a second. So non-binary is like you don't feel like a man or a woman?
That's basically what I've gotten from people I've talked to.
Okay.
They don't subscribe to any gender. I've met people in New York City that were professionals. Other than maybe a physical stature and a tone of voice, you'd never know which they were assigned at birth. See, that's the thing that is really wrong, the way people look at this. They equate sex with gender, and the two are totally different. Your sex is your physical anatomy. And that usually happens when you're born. The doctor announces it's a boy or it's a girl. But in my case, and in many others, they weren't right, because the way gender is between the ears, not the legs.
Okay. What's gender fluid then? What does the gender fluid mean?
That's something that I could never do. I tried cross-dressing briefly. I hated it because I had to take everything off, and it reminded me of who I couldn't be, that I couldn't be me. Gender fluid is somebody who, well, for the sake of having a job and everything else, they present as male when they're on the road going to visit clients or in any kind of business environment or whatever. And the minute they leave that, they get into the car, change into a dress, heels, and they're off and running as a woman. They blend in perfectly well in both worlds.
Got it. Okay.
That's a smaller segment of the community. They're there. And there's a lot of us around like that.
Okay. Got it.
And then there's the cross-dressing community. A lot of these people would never want to be a woman. They just would never think of doing what I've done, because they wouldn't want to give up that male privilege. They don't see themselves living as women full time, and that's not how they identify.
Okay.
Their gender.
Okay with that, right? Like it's not like I mean, you don't really care that it's like they're not going all in. They're trying to just like, it's almost like a hobby to them. I mean, I know this sounds goofy, but
some people consider it a fetish. Other people consider it just a lifestyle, which is how I feel about it. The variations that are in the transgender community, as far as I'm concerned, are just lifestyle differences and how we're wired and how we feel about ourselves. Okay. My goal was blend in as any other woman, which I achieved. Other people have different goals. Now, this is the mind blower for some people. I had a neighbor who was a psychologist, and it took him a good week or two and several conversations with me to wrap his head around the fact that LGBT is sexual orientation, who you love.
Okay. Lesbian, gay, bi. Okay, that's sexual orientation, who you love. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, now you come along with the T that got tacked on to the end of that.
Yep.
T is gender identity. Okay. Who you identify as. And that, as I just described, is a variation. But within the T community, any T could be an L, a G, or a B.
Any T. So any trans can be a lesbian, a gay, or a bi?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna have to give that one a think. Let me ask you this: like right now, as a woman, are lesbians into you?
On Messenger, Facebook Messenger, I get a lot of things from gay women.
Okay, interesting.
But I'm not into that.
So you're into men now?
Yeah.
Got it. But as Larry, prior to all of this, I probably, you don't even want to use that name, but like you were never into men, not even ever. Like there was never that physical attraction to men.
Not to offend any of my gay friends, I felt for him, my male facsimile, having relations with a man was gross. That's how strongly that was.
Yeah.
But most of my strongest supporters and really good friends now are gay men, gay women, and cisgender women who were born female. Those are basically my friends now and my supporters.
Got it. Okay. All right. So let me kind of recap all this. Okay. So did you end up getting divorced? Like when did you guys end up getting divorced?
It was somewhere near the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, amicable divorce.
Holy shit. So like you stayed married for, I mean, what is
40 years.
40 years. Oh my God.
What else was I going to do?
So for those 40 years, did your kids ever know anything? And
No.
obviously they know now, right?
Yep.
What's your relationship with your kids now?
Not good.
Really?
Yep. Sadly, my son had a lot of problems and everything, and he wound up in 2018 killing himself with heroin.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
And I found out just in 2022, I found out just how badly this affected my relationship with my daughter, and that relationship is rather distant at best.
Okay.
My ex and I still do communicate occasionally, and we divorced amicably. She knew all about this from 1978. When I sprung it on her in late 2014 that I was going to start therapy in January of 2015, there was no surprise. I think the only surprise was she said to me, I was constantly worried about this until we started to get older. Then I figured, no, it'll never happen.
Yeah. Which honestly, I think it totally makes sense. And like I've told you, what really attracted me to you as a human being is the fact that you did it. And I've told you this, like at 67 to do what you did, not only is it a testament for, let's say, the trans community, it's a testament that, hey, you're never too old to do. You're never too old.
Exact words.
Yeah, I love that. And you're never too old to reinvent yourself. Like that's a big thing for me these days is like, reinventing yourself. There's no expiration date on reinventing yourself. And as a lot of people, especially, my network, get into their, we've turned 50 and you get into that. It's like you can look at things one of two ways. You can, using a golf analogy, you can think you're playing the back nine and you're on your descent, or you can say, you know what, fuck that. I'm still playing on the front nine and I'm still ascending, which is how I choose to look at things. And I think that's how you choose to look at things because you did do this at an age and a stage in life that honestly, most people have a hard time picking up a new hobby at that stage. So what happened in 2014? Like what was your breaking point, or what happened that you finally, because you did the surgery in 2015? No,
January of 2015, I started with my therapist.
Oh, okay, 15.
Because that's one of the things that the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, WPATH, they set guidelines for the medical community. Therapy for a minimum of a year.
Oh, okay.
A psychiatrist for a minimum of a year.
Wow.
All of those are necessary before a surgeon will even talk to you.
My gosh, so it's almost like a cooling off period.
Well, and it's some people in the community view them as gatekeepers. I don't. There's a very big difference between wanting to do this and needing to do this. I needed to do this. My health was horrible. My blood work was bad. I was 70 pounds heavier than I am now.
Oh my God.
And as I started to go through this, in the first 6 months, I did what I call in my coaching practice, the mental work. Shifting all my thoughts, because all those thoughts that I had that I couldn't do this, all those fears that I had, all that shame, all that guilt, I had to get rid of that, offload that. My therapist helped tremendously. I got into mindfulness, back into my hippie days of meditation, and started working on visioning and changing my thought patterns so that I could change my emotions. And once all that started to happen, all that inner turmoil that those emotions create, because our emotions are communicated to our body by our mind through our body chemistry. The neuropeptides the hypothalamus produces signal your body that, yeah, there's fear or there's stress or there's anxiety. All of that I had to change. And with the help of my therapist and a lot of reading and a lot of work that I did on myself, I started to go through that process and eliminate all of that stuff. I found self-acceptance for the first time in my life.
This is 2015. This is all of
2015. This is in the first 6 months of 2015.
Okay.
I found self-acceptance. By that June, I actually was beginning to love myself for the first time in my life. We got into June, and my wife looked at me and she said, I'm worried about the future, and I'm worried about this, and I'm having all this anxiety over what we're doing. And you couldn't be happier. You pissed me off. And I said, I'm sorry about that. I don't mean to do that, but I'm just so excited about being able to be me for the first time in my life. Wow. Then she said one other thing, which we both laughed about. She said, well, my first husband left me for another woman, and now my second husband is leaving me to become a woman. The irony is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. All right, so when was the surgery? So you went through that again. Whatever cooling off period, for lack of a better way to put it, and that's mandatory. You're saying like
Mandatory.
America, if you want to do that, like, could you have gone to Mexico and done like this surgery or other?
Oh, sure. I could have gone, and another big place to go is Thailand.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
they're really good at the surgeries there. In fact, I know surgeons who in this country who went to Thailand to do short-term residencies and learn their techniques.
Okay, interesting.
But no, I was going to do it here. And in 2016, I started looking.
Okay.
And by January of 2017, I had my consultation with Dr. Rachel Bluebond at NYU Medical Center in Manhattan. And she's a top shelf surgeon, top shelf hospital. Dr. Lee Zhao is also part of the surgical team. Right. He's a expert in robotics, and he's a top urologist in the city.
Okay.
And I had my appointment for my consultation in January of 2017, and I had my surgery August 31st of 2017. I literally ran into the hospital at 5:45 in the morning, so excited was just beyond happy. I was finally getting my birth defect fixed.
What is it? You tell me I can ask anything. So, like, what does that cost? How much is that?
Actually, the Medicare and my insurance covered the whole thing.
Okay. But I mean, that's got to be like a couple $100,000, right?
Oh, it's up there.
Yeah. Holy mackerel.
It's definitely up there.
All right. So let's get real. Let's get into that surgery, because, like, I'm fascinated by this process and I'm clueless about this process. So first of all, the male body part, that thing gets cut off. They cut that off?
No, not completely.
Not completely.
No, this was funny. I had a countdown app on my phone, counting down the days from my consult to my surgery day.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things to do in the town that I lived in, New Hope, Pennsylvania, was I would go to the Raven, which was a gay bar, after work, because I worked as a cashier in a supermarket. I would go to the bar, and I would be there for happy hour, which usually started around 3 and ended at around 6 or 7. A long hour. And
Half day.
one of the reasons I enjoyed going there is I enjoyed talking to everybody. Straight men, gay women, and straight women would come in there, even as groups. And all gay bar, women can go to, and nobody's going to hit on them.
Yeah.
So it's a good place for them to go and hang. And I enjoyed the conversations with the guys because, first of all, the gay community would look at me as somebody very different from them.
Mm.
That's what I discovered when I first moved into town. And I decided I wasn't going to let that go because there are a lot of similarities. There's a lot of parallels to our lives. I'd look at the guys and I go, you had a career? Yeah. You knew from a very young age you were gay? Yeah. And you had a wife and you had kids? Yeah. And then you couldn't take it anymore and you came out and now you're divorced and you're gay and you're living here? Yeah. The only difference between you and me, you became a G, I became a T.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. And I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense looking at it like that. And again, I'm sure that guy is happy, probably for the first time in his life. And you're happy for really the first section time. There was something else I pulled off of what you had. I think you had this on your website, but you talked about your process of the surgery and transitioning and all that. You said it's no different than any major life change, whether that's changing of a job, changing of a career, and that's getting a divorce, whatever. Like it's a major life change, but at the end of the day, I think what I hope people, one of the many things I hope people take away from this is that you're living your life. You're doing you, and this made you happy. I think it's really interesting if we were to take a look at your lab work and your internal health now versus definitely 8, 9, 10, probably 20 years ago. You're probably healthier now as the person you want to be, and not even want to be, as a person that you are versus the person you were. Pure health wise, you're probably healthy. That's fascinating. You've lost 70 pounds. But that's really cool. Like you did something that to some people would seem drastic, but by doing it, I mean, who knows? You might be dead now had you not done this.
Well, I'm convinced that at age 67, I would have never made it to 70. My blood work was terrible with triglycerides and cholesterol and a few other things going on there. And I was type 2 diabetic. I was very much out of shape. And as I said, 70 pounds heavier. Now, my blood work comes back perfect all the time. The doctor looked at me after living as Wendy for 3 years. He looked at me and he said, "What's going on with you? I'm taking you off your diabetic meds. I'm taking you off all the other meds. You don't need them anymore." And what's going on? And I looked at him and I said, "It starts with being happy."
Yeah.
Now I love myself. I take care of myself. I eat right. I watch my portions. And by that time, I had established a exercise routine. And I love walking. And right now I live in a city, and I'm good to walk anywhere between, at a minimum, 3 miles, most times closer to 5 or 6 miles a day.
Love it. Love it. I'm a big walk guy. I'm a big step count guy. I wear a Fitbit. I normally wear an Apple Watch. I love it. That's fantastic. That is really interesting. It's like the health benefits you got from transitioning.
As far as the surgery goes, I was in NYU hospital for 5 days. They had some really cool techniques. They don't cut off the male penis.
Okay. Oh,
They use the head tissue of it to form a clitoris. They use the skin of the shaft to form the vaginal canal. And they remove the urethra from the penis.
Okay.
And they have to shorten it, obviously, and refit it into all the right places. Dr. Rachel Bluebond's techniques were amazing because there's a G-spot. And at my first gynecologist visit, the girl that took me into the waiting room for the doctor never told the doctor that this was surgically created. I don't know why she didn't tell her, but she didn't. So the doctor comes in and she takes the speculum, which she used to it.
OBGYN post all of this couldn't tell.
Couldn't tell. Their first question to me was, "Oh, when did you have your hysterectomy?" Well, that's what Dr. Bluebond had told me was the only thing that the doctor would notice is it looked like you had a hysterectomy and the vaginal canal was closed up. That's it.
Okay. Well, you know what? That is learning for me for sure, because I thought they cut him off and, I don't know, put her in, but literally, like, he transitioned to her. So, like, they used that. That is interesting. That's
Instead of being an outie, I'm now an innie.
yeah. Okay. All right. Was it like, did you wake up in pain? Like, was it painful? And
Actually, I remember in recovery, they asked me what my pain level was. It was about a 5-hour surgery.
okay.
And I remember saying, "Oh, 3." So they took me to my room. When I got discharged 5 days later, this nurse came in with my folder and she said, "Wendy, it says on here you didn't have any narcotic painkillers. Is that true?" And I said, "No, that's true. They ever gave me was Tylenol or Motrin. Maybe industrial strength, but that's all they gave me. I didn't need the rest." Second, after surgery, I'm all wired up with all this stuff inside me and everything, and I've got this pulse. I'm in my hospital gown, and I'm walking laps around the hospital floor.
Wow. Did it, like, I don't know, feel weird?
No.
By weird, I don't mean weird as in like uncomfortable or different. You know what I mean? Obviously, like, it's different.
Actually, at that point, no, it didn't. I knew I had a lot of stuff down there. A lot of surgeons will pack the new vagina with packing material to keep it open and expand it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What they used at NYU on me, and they still do, I believe, is it's called a wound vac. And what it is it's like a tube that they've got stuck inside the new vagina, wrapped in gauze, and it creates negative pressure inside the new vagina. And so there's any bleeding or anything like that takes place, it all gets drawn out into a reservoir. So the healing process I went through was fast and really easy.
You do the boob job in the same surgery, right? Like, I imagine.
My surgeon asked me, she said, "Do you want to have breast augmentation?" And by that time, just with the hormones alone, I had gotten to a solid B cup size breast.
Wow.
And a lot of my born female friends told me, "Wendy, you probably don't want to go much bigger than C." One of them had B-cup breasts, and she told me she was going for breast reduction surgery.
Got it.
Because it was impossible for her to sleep on her stomach. It was very difficult to sleep on the side, and it was kind of uncomfortable, and she was getting tired of it. So I decided, here I am at 69 having this surgery. And no, I don't need to go through
Okay,
that.
so you didn't do that. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I would have thought you would have done that, but it sounds like so. Do you still have to take hormones and stuff? What kind of medication do you take on a daily basis for? I guess for the rest of your life.
Rest of my life, and it's not daily, it's weekly. I use a very short needle and do a subcutaneous injection once a week of a small amount of estradiol.
Okay, estrogen.
That's it.
Okay, interesting. Okay. All right, one final question on that, because so the urethra where you urinate, so they just kind of had to shorten that, but it's still there. So really you're urinating out of your vagina?
They constructed the whole female anatomy there.
Okay, so it's like maybe a little bit below. Interesting. Yeah, that's
There's the labia majora,
okay.
which is the whole vulva that covers everything. Then there's the labia minora, and then you've got the clitoris, the G-spot in there. You get to the urethra and the vaginal canal. And that's why it's a 5-hour surgery. She constructed all of that.
Yeah.
And most everybody that I know, because I volunteered at the hospital for a while, helping other girls go through their surgeries. That's where I got the inspiration to do my coaching work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was just amazing watching them, because they all had very similar experiences to mine. No real significant pain.
Okay.
There are exceptions. Most of the girls that I knew had no problems. And this is the other thing. None of us really know for sure what our true sexual orientation's going to be after surgery. I had a client, now a friend, who swore to me, she said, I'm a lesbian in waiting. I'm only going to be with women. Ray, she's never been with another woman. She only dates men. And that didn't happen until after the surgery, because she used to tell me, men are gross. Now that's all she dates. One of my other clients that I helped through her whole transition and into her surgeries and everything, she wasn't sure what she was going to be attracted to. She's always been attracted to women. When she was in her male representative mode. She has a boyfriend now. He moved in. They're living together.
Wow.
But
interesting. God, things change, I guess. Maybe that's a chemical thing, a hormonal thing. Who knows? That's interesting.
I think what it is that it's latent in there.
Okay.
And this whole transition process changes your whole being. That's why when I start working with somebody to help them go through their transition, we do right up front what I call the mental work first.
Yeah, let's talk about your coaching. So now, because of this amazing thing, you're not working in tech anymore. You have dedicated yourself to really help others live their authentic life by going through this process. So tell us about that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it all started by doing it in person where I was living at the time. Yeah. But after my surgery and all my experiences at NYU, I would talk to girls the night before their surgery. If they were really, really nervous, I'd get a phone call from the hospital. Would you mind talking to so-and-so? And of course not.
And by the way, when you're saying girls right now, they're guys at this point. I mean, it's so...
They still have the male parts. Yes. That has nothing to do with how they identify.
I get it. Okay, I just want to try and, again, for us novices that are still acclimating to all this, I just want people to simply understand what we're at. Okay.
Yeah, you're putting context around that so that people can understand, which is great.
Okay. So you are now working with, again, Kim at that do you work with them for months leading into the surgery, or how does that work?
Well, when I was doing that, I would talk to the girls the night before surgery. So that would be my first meeting with them. That would be, what's making you feel so anxious about this? I always got clarification up front that yes, this person does qualify for the surgery. They know they need it, everything. They're just nervous. They want to talk to somebody who's already been through it.
Sure. Are you in this role? Are you working on behalf of the hospital, or is this an independent business of yours?
That was just me on a volunteer basis.
Oh, got it. On a volunteer basis. Okay, got it.
The other thing I volunteered to do was they would have what is called surgery classes.
Mhm.
Because everybody is curious. Everybody wants to know what it's going to be like when they go through it. So they would have people come into New York City and attend surgery class. Everyone who's going to have surgery next quarter comes to surgery class this quarter.
Okay.
And so the entire medical staff would go through up on stage and talk to the audience about what they're going to experience. And this is not only the patients, but friends, relatives, parents, whoever else wants to come is invited. So I volunteered and did quite a few surgery classes. It would be me and maybe 2 or 3 other girls who had had surgery would be up on stage with microphones and taking questions from the audience for about an hour and a half. I had a blast doing that. And they asked everything. That was also one of the things that inspired me to just go ahead and start helping other people come out, find their courage, and start to do the transition that they knew they needed to do. Most of my clients are terrified.
Yeah.
They're highly closeted. They're very hidden, just the way I was. And just to get them to come to a Zoom conversation with me is a major step for them. And a lot of that fear is imposed by society.
Sure.
You don't fit the heteronormative lifestyle. You're different. You're weird, and everything. That's really is promotes a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety in people, and makes them even more hidden.
I totally.
And that's what I try to help them with.
I love it. All right, listen. You know what I think we should do. This is a. Oh my God! I seriously feel like we could talk for 3 more hours. But how about we do this, because I think this will be more effective. This is amazing, and we're coming up on an hour and a half, which blows my mind.
Right.
It feels like 5 minutes. Let's kind of end this part 1 here, because this way everyone can digest this. I can then come back to this, set the stage a little. And then, because honestly, I have literally 30 more questions, but I think I'd rather do a part 2 and almost do a part 2, maybe in like 2 weeks or something like that. And then that way we can get all in. Because honestly, I feel like we're at such a nice point right now in terms of people really being able to digest everything that we talked about and set a nice pillar. Is that cool? Let's do it this way. Cause I've got, I'm not even kidding. I have like 2 more things I want to ask, but then we'll be at like a 5-hour interview.
That's totally cool, Ray. I'm fine with that.
All right. So Wendy, I think this is what we should do, because I literally have at least 10 more sections that I wanted to talk about. Let's kind of make this part 1. And, more than anything, I just have to tell you, I'm blown away at you're living your life. And that's what I want people to take away from this, along with all the knowledge about everything and all that. But, at this stage in really, I know the folks that listen to the Deep Shallow Dive, and that is that, hey, you're never too old to do anything. Live your life. be authentic. And honestly, I mean, I might have to start to create a Mount Rushmore of authenticity, and you're gonna be the first president that's out there. But listen, I really appreciate it, and I really, really genuinely appreciate your openness to help educate us and help us understand everything. And we will set up part 2 where we can dive into more of my questions. How's that sound?
That sounds wonderful, Ray. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And you've been great with your questions, your conversation, everything. It's been amazing.
I appreciate that. All right, sounds good. Well, listen, you take good care until we meet again in part 2, which will be coming soon.
The ending was terrific.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You, available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hardcover and paperback. Don't forget to sign up for our new mailing list on our website at deepshallowdive.com.